Hey, so I'm Skark11 with the next Xenoblade 3 class buff, where we look at ways to make classes function better at their intended playstyles. Today we're looking at buffing Summoner, which is a post-game class, so there will be a post-game character spoiler, 5-second heads up. So, Royal Summoner's problem is that it's trying to be Melia's playstyle from Xenoblade 1, but that doesn't translate too well into Xenoblade 3's class formula, so it ends up just being really slow to do anything, and not worth using over another class that can just use its Master Arts. So instead of buffing it directly, we're going to be giving it more of a fundamental change to its arts, so that it functions more like Melia did in Xenoblade 1, with its unique mechanic, her unique mechanic for how her talent art worked. So before we get to those changes with the arts, we're going to be looking at the skills. Elemental Boost, I'm not going to change this skill, but I just want to note that in its current state, this skill isn't amazing because it's just really slow to activate since it only activates per discharge, which I believe just releases all of your elements at once, and it's pretty slow to get those discharges out. I'm not sure if it counts for when you get an extra summon and it automatically releases ones you're currently holding. I'm not entirely sure if it counts for that, but either way, with the changes we're going to be making to the arts, this skill will become a lot better without changing it at all, because you'll be able to have discharges more often to charge this up, so it'll effectively become a much better skill. Essence of Ether, nothing to change here, this is already great. Fortified Ether Guard. This is pretty pointless, especially since Ether defense in this class isn't even that high. So we're going to be changing this to the Ether version of Ultimate Qigong. Why didn't this class already have an Ether version of Ultimate Qigong? It would have been the perfect class for it. I don't understand why it never existed. Just why? So make this into the Ether version of Ultimate Qigong instead of Ether defense. Who needs an extra pitiful 20% Ether defense on a class that doesn't have much Ether defense in the first place? Just make it an Ether version of Ultimate Qigong, please. And lastly, Here I Shall Stand. So this one's going to be changed a bit. Since we're already effectively buffing this one by making it work faster, we don't really need this extra 100%. So we're going to replace that with a mechanic, unique skill mechanic that's going to apply to the talent art. And that is releasing elements. Well, elemental discharges will charge the talent gauge. So this is going to go in with how we're making this function more like Melia. I mean, you don't really need to have a skill for this, but I feel like it would make sense to just have a skill for explaining the mechanic instead of it just, I don't know, being part of a tutorial if this were to be how the class was changed. I feel like it just makes sense to give it a skill for the unique mechanic, even though it's not technically necessary to give it a skill for that. Now for the arts. So we're going to change Summon Element, Elemental Discharge, and Shadow Stitch into Summon Aqua, Summon Earth, and Summon Flare. The summons that she currently already has, the class already has these, they would not change at all. They would function exactly as they do already with their damage, their buffs. And this way, you could summon the element that you want instead of having to rely on RNG from Summon Element. You can just summon all the elements you want when you want them. I would probably put the cooldowns around 20 seconds each, maybe 18 seconds each, since you would be having at least two of them you're running at a time. You'd probably also have Starfall or Power Effect. Well, not Power Effect. You'd just have Starfall probably. So you'd effectively just be running two summons probably most of the time. You could run three if you wanted, but it would probably end up being better to just run two of them to stack the buffs that you wanted. So this way you would have more frequent summons, and the talent art would become Elemental Discharge. But the talent art would only be Elemental Discharge until it is full. So when the talent art is not full, it is Elemental Discharge, which allows you to discharge the elements that you are currently holding. And because of the skill, it would charge the talent gauge when you use the talent art to just release the summons that you're holding. and then it would charge up to Element Genesis as it is, except change Element Genesis to an Ether attack. Because why is it physical? Like, it's so good that it's physical, but only because there is no Ether version of Ultimate Qigong. So, have an Ether version of Ultimate Qigong and make this an Ether attack, please. Just so weird with the decision making on this. So this would make it like Melia's playstyle in Xenoblade 1. You summon with regular arts. You use an empty talent art to release the summons as an attack. And then the more you do that, the more it charges up the talent art so that you have more powerful discharge attacks. In this case, Element Genesis would be the powerful discharge attack. Because of this change, I would make Element Genesis a 6 charge talent art instead of 4, since you would be able to charge it much faster by having more summons to release. And as I mentioned before, with the skill, for the additive skill, you'd be able to get it up much faster since you're able to release summons a lot faster. You could effectively have 3 summons all at once and then release them all at once for a quick plus 120, 120 if you're releasing 3. So within the first few seconds of the battle, you could summon 3 elements and then release them all for an almost instant 120%, of maybe take like 10 seconds in the battle to get that many. And then they're all on coming off cooldown. You can summon them again, get more additives from that very quickly, and you could very quickly get up to the 400% maximum, all while charging your talent art so that you have the OP Element Genesis. And since you would not have Shadow Stitch as the only positional art, you wouldn't need positional arts anyway to charge it, but you could still have positional arts from your Master Art to charge it, so that would charge Element Genesis even faster. I mean, it's not like this would be any more powerful than Seraph already with using Element Genesis. So, it would probably make it about even as a competitor, not as fast as Seraph, but gives you a more supportive playstyle while also being as powerful, or almost as powerful. It wouldn't be nearly as powerful as Seraph does because it has a lot of different ways to boost damage, but it would still be pretty powerful. Wouldn't be a direct competitor with Seraph, I'd say. It'd be more like another option alongside Seraph as another damage dealer, since they would function a little differently, since this would be more of a supportive damage dealer, since you can control the buffs that you use. And then the Master Arts in this case would probably be Summon Flare and Summon Earth, I guess. So that way you could only use one of them on other classes. Well, yeah, I guess you could use both if you really wanted, but then it would take into your Master Art slots. So you'd effectively only really want to run one of them. Yeah, that's it for changes to the Royal Summoner class. Melia had probably the most interesting, most fun playstyle in Xenoblade 1, so I was pretty disappointed that it didn't work like that in Xenoblade 3, not even close to it. So a lot of fundamental changes to the class to make it function more like Melia did in Xenoblade 1, while keeping the intention of the playstyle, which is to copy Melia's playstyle. It's just that didn't really work out in the final version. It's also pretty funny that Melia being the strongest in Xenoblade 1 and Nia being one of the weakest in Xenoblade 2 kind of got reversed with how their classes function, with Melia getting nerfed and Nia getting really buffed. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Class Buffs. I will have at least one more where I'm going to cover Tactician again, because that was the first episode that I did, and I want to cover Tactician again and do it better. If you watched the end, comment Blossom Dance down below, and see you next time.